Hey, good morning, YouTube. Salutations, wherever you're at. So I thought I'd do an update on my Sharpe series reread. I recently read Sharpe's Enemy and Sharpe's Honor in the series. That puts me at 9 for the series total, and I just started Sharpe's Regiment today. But my reading week was a little bit slow. I mean, I didn't do too bad. I mean, I read two and a half books in the week, but I just had some stuff going on, so I didn't get quite as much done as I should have. But Sharpe's Honor is excellent. Like, I really enjoyed that one, like, even more so than I usually do for a Sharpe book, and they're all pretty good. So, in Sharpe's Honor, the La Marquesa returns from Sharpe's sword, which is also a really good character. The La Marquesa she's basically a spy. She's a French woman, but she's married to a Spaniard, and that ends up being a driving force of the plot in this book. So basically what ends up happening is Sharpe is framed. There's like a whole plot. So Ducos returns too from Sharpe, who was just in the previous book, and Sharpe's Enemy. Usually that's the only things that continue from book to book in the Bernard Cornwell books. It's like some characters reappear. It's rarely like plot like that links the books. It's usually characters and character stuff that does. So anyway, but Ducos was offended by Sharpe on the previous book, so Ducos kind of gets some revenge on this. But the plot is basically that Ducos he's trying to set up a treaty with Spain and the Spanish king to make peace again with France, and Ducos, who is a Frenchman, so basically trying to make it to where France has to leave there. But which his plan makes sense for them to do, because obviously they won't have to do any more fighting in Spain, and then if they sign the treaty with Spain, Spain doesn't have any reason for the British to be there anymore, which of course removes the British foothold there, and obviously then France doesn't have to fight them anymore. So what ends up happening is to kind of hurt their relationship with the British. They devise this plot of the Marquesa, who's trying to get out of the country of Spain, trying to get back to France with some money and gold, and she's involved in this plot. She basically writes this letter saying that Sharpe assaulted her and basically just not doing very good things. Sends it to her husband, who's a Spanish nobleman, and then of course the Spanish nobleman reads this and is offended by it. And so the plan is that once it's sent to the nobleman, something will happen, and he'll challenge Sharpe to a duel, and hopefully Sharpe will die, is what they want, or Sharpe actually they want Sharpe to kill the Spanish nobleman, is what it is, in the duel, and then that'll harm relations that Sharpe, a Britishman, killed such a high up Spanish person, strain relationships, because it's already kind of fragile as it is. So the idea is that, this would make it worse. So anyway, and so once the Spanish nobleman figures this out, he goes and, he doesn't figure the plot out. Once he finds this letter saying that, Sharpe did all these things, he challenges him to a duel. And of course, Sharpe is, this man of honor, and, so he accepts the challenge, despite the fact that everyone knows it's pretty well known that the Duke of Wellington does not approve of duels. So, and everyone's telling him, like, this will wreck your career. Even win if you win, it doesn't matter because your career will be over. If you lose, you'll be dead. So either way, it won't work out for you. The fight ends up getting interrupted, and so even though Sharpe was gonna win, but it doesn't matter. It gets interrupted, and someone during the night murders the Spanish nobleman, so then it just makes it all even worse. So, and then Sharpe is blamed. There's like an eyewitness saying they identify like some stuff about his uniform and his heavy cavalry sword, and he's blamed for it. But of course, since Sharpe has saved the Duke of Wellington's life, and he's very good friends with Major Hogan, and they end up setting up someone else who had to be executed anyway. They make it seem like Sharpe was murdered. You don't know that right away. That's probably the only thing I didn't like about the book, was doing this whole fake hanging, because it's almost like it tries to trick you. I didn't love that. It wasn't terrible, but that's like the one flaw of the book. I just didn't really care for that because it's a little heavy-handed. But besides that, everything else about it's really great. So they make a little mission. They basically tell Sharpe, like, prove that this whatever's going on, and we'll help you. They just do as much as they can for him. Duke of Wellington and Hogan don't actually expect him to have much success, but if he can go and get the Marquesa to, denounce what she said, then at least it would help him. So that's what he does. He goes, And then he ends up uncovering, he's given a sidekick named Angel, who's pretty cool, a younger kid, Spanish kid. And then, anyway, he ends up going, and eventually he's captured by the French, and there's the whole, a whole thing goes on there with him being tortured, and Dugos coming in the room, and obviously, well, I just said they're torturing him, but it ends up being a whole big ordeal. But of course, the French don't actually approve of torture, and since Sharpe's a man of rank, they, there are other people that want to treat him better. Because the La Marquesa is actually put in a covenant. That's where he goes first, and he breaks they force her into it, because if she goes to the covenant, she forfeits the wealth she inherited from the Spanish nobleman. So that's part of the plot, too. If the Spanish that's why she agreed to it, because the Spanish nobleman died, she inherited all his wealth. But what she didn't know was that Ducos and then these two Spaniards he was working with, one is an inquisitor, and the other one's just a Spanish partisan. If they, put her in they'll put her in the covenant, and then her money has to go to the church then, and then the church, the inquisitor, who's a religious figure, gets her money. So, but Sharpe breaks her out of there first, and then they're captured by the French, and then he ends up basically, with Dugos torturing him. If I remember right, Dugos gets away at the end of the book, but I have to check on that, because I don't think that that wasn't resolved. But anyway, so it ends up he gets captured, and what ends up happening, there's an explosion while he's with the French, and then he escapes during the explosion. But there ends up being a really big battle at the end, and Sharpe, once he gets the letter proving his innocence and all this other stuff, and he gets proof of the plot of what Dugos was doing, because he's not actually approved by the French government to be doing that. He's actually doing it for King Joseph, who's Napoleon's brother, who wants Spanish power or whatever. But anyway, but he goes, even though despite the fact he has all the proof now, he wants to be part of the battle. So he goes and does that first. And this is actually one of the most interesting battles in the whole series, because the French lose, which they lose on all of them in the Peninsular War, but there is actually a looting and an overrun of the French camp and this little city there, and all the civilians, and it is just nightmarish to see an army on the run and just the chaos that ensues from this. Like, it's tragic, really. Like, it's actually pretty sad and almost gut wrenching, but this was life for them at the time. Anyway, it's really this Sharpe's Honor, man, it was really fantastic. Sorry, I had some notes here, just making sure I didn't miss anything. No. So, I said the hanging was faked. Yeah. But anyway, so it was just a really excellent book. Like I said, the very end scene of the sacking and the army on the run was just really great. There are people throwing silver down because there's so much gold available, because the French treasury was with them. But it's not just, there was a whole bunch of French people leaving, so there's just a lot of wealth in the trains, in the supply lines and the camp and stuff. And it is just, like I said, it's crazy. It's brutal. So he ends up fighting with that Spanish partisan at the end. Cornwell's never afraid to make a British person the antagonist, a Spaniard the antagonist. Like a lot of the French, there's a French guy who's actually a pretty good dude in this. So he's not afraid to turn the tables like that a bit and keep it interesting. So, but anyway, I really enjoyed this. I definitely say check out Sharpe's Honor. If you were going to pick one book out of the series, this wouldn't be a bad one. I'd probably say get Sharpe's Sword, but sorry, I don't know why I was holding that up, but anyway, definitely check this out. It's very good. I love the Sharpe series, so I'll edit in a cover somewhere so you guys can see it, because I don't own a hard copy of it. It was very good, very, very good. So anyway, that's all for today, YouTube. Good night or good day, wherever you're at.